Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles, your favorite true crime podcast. I am Donnie, and with me is a man that wants everyone to know that he's broke all of his New Year's resolutions and a few commandments. It's Dale.
That's right. Get this shit over with.
That's right. He's just going to break everything.
That's right. Just go for it, man. Go for it.
Break all the rules.
So what's going on, man?
What's going on with you?
Same old, same old.
Oh, back in the Crack House doing an episode.
Man, I can't wait.
Yeah, we got a good one today.
We got a dang good.
Yeah. Speaking of good, you got any good shout-outs?
I do, man. Check this out.
Oh, man. That's the kind of clap I like.
Okay, we have a new Apple 5-star podcast review. Are you ready?
Bring it on, dude. Bring it on.
This comes from our good friend, listener 954.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? Says, good listening, exclamation point. Stumbled onto this gem. Well-researched, varied. Good chemistry between the hosts. Really, really good. Thanks, guys.
Two reallys.
Two reallys.
Whoa.
This is a double really.
Oh.
We're double really good.
Man.
Give me a new slogan. Double really good. We're
Double really good. Put that on a shirt.
Yeah, that sounds like a good shirt.
That's right.
We're double really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thanks so much, listener 954. We appreciate you going on there on our New Year's Eve and dropping us one.
And if anybody else wants to be like listener 954 and go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, please write something in that box, and we'll get a notification, and you will get a shout-out.
That's right, because we love it.
Yep.
We love it. We love you, and thanks so much.
That's how it works.
For giving us a little bit of time there.
Yep. If anybody wants to go to the store page and give them a shirt, a T-shirt, some kind of mug.
A hoodie.
Yeah.
Cold.
Yeah. Get you something, help support the Crack House, keep the lights on.
We sure appreciate it.
We really will.
Every little bit helps.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to sling us $2 or $3 through the PayPal, we'll take that. Then.
Yeah, there's a link on our website, the gas button.
Yeah.
Fill up the gas tank.
Fill up the gas tank, and we'll put it toward a bill.
That's right. That's right, dude. Other than that, we're going to get going on this episode, dude, because we've got a good one.
Yes, we do.
Because, we've been highly invested in Asha Degree's case.
Yep.
This is local to us, and
very much so.
We are just invested in her case and trying to get more exposure to it. And
we're trying to hit it all angles,
We really are.
Yeah.
And
she deserves it all.
Yeah. We have a special guest with us tonight. His name is Mark Davis. He is retired sergeant from the Cleveland County Sheriffs Dept, and he has some insight on Asha Degree's case, and he has agreed to be on the show.
Awesome.
And we're just going to welcome him to the show. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Hey, I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all having me.
We appreciate you a whole big bunch.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, it is. Before we get going, Mark, tell us a little bit more about you and Cleveland County Sheriff's Dept and what all you did for the department.
Okay. I started my career at the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office in 1991. During my tenure at the Sheriff's Office, I served under 4 different sheriffs.
Wow.
I served as a patrol officer, a narcotics investigator, a patrol supervisor, courthouse security supervisor, detention administrator, and I finished my career as the civil division administrator.
Okay.
And I've lived in Cleveland County my whole life. Still live here.
Well, you know a lot of the ins and outs about the Cleveland County Sheriff's Department and some stuff we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh, yeah. I have a little bit of knowledge about it.
But you reached out to me and said you'd listened to the show and listened to several episodes we had done on Asha Degree, and you have some more information that you want to share with us. But get us started on the beginning of where you got started in the Asha Degree case. I mean, you talked the other day, but let's start with that, what you told me the other day.
All right. I was the patrol supervisor. I was a patrol sergeant at the time. My lieutenant at the time was actually Alan Norman, our sheriff now.
Mm-hmm.
He had taken the day off, so I had the shift by myself as the only supervisor working that day. We normally got to the office about 6:30 in the morning to begin a shift briefing. And when I rolled into the office that morning, was preparing my paperwork, the supervisor's phone rang, and it was communications. And they said they had a missing child up off 18 North, and the parents wasn't able to find her. And, of course, a missing child that was Asha's age was concerning, especially that time of morning. And we had had the bad storm the night before. And one of the things from my past experiences I had seen was children that age, if they get scared during the night, they'll hide. And so I picked two of my senior officers that had been with the sheriff's office a good while. And I said, what y'all want y'all to do is go up there and tear that house apart. I said, I want you to get permission from the family. I said, my feelings is that child will be hiding somewhere in that house. And so they responded, and they called me back in about 30 minutes, and they said, Sergeant, we can't find this child anywhere. And so my, I guess, blood pressure went way up, because that means something's bad wrong.
Right.
And so I told them, I said, I'm on my way up there. And I passed my captain in the hall, and he said, Mark, he said, I want searchers on the ground. He said, I want them on the ground as soon as you can put them there. And so the sheriff's office and the fire marshal's office has a real good working relationship in Cleveland County. And the fire marshal office in Cleveland County does all of the ground searches for like missing people. They coordinate with all the fire departments and rescue squads. And so I got a hold of, I believe it was Dewey Cook.
I know Dewey Cook. Yeah.
You probably know Dewey.
Oh, yeah.
Good fellow. And so Dewey said, Mark, I'll get you searchers on the ground. So I responded up to Asha's mother and father's house and met with my officers, and they told me, what they had done so far. And, there's a lot of speculation, I'm sure, about the parents, but Asha's mother and father was exactly what I, in my mind, expect if my child was missing. They were reacting the way you would expect parents to react. They were upset. Her mother was crying. Her father was deeply concerned. He was almost in tears. So, my real belief is that she had gone and did like they said. She had just walked out of that house. And so I had a K-9 officer, and I started a K-9 searching for her. First thing I did when I got on the ground there. So I deployed a K-9 and put the K-9 on the ground. Mm-hmm. And the K-9 searched sort of diagonally across her backyard and went towards the intersection of where Mole's Church is. Yes, Mole's Chapel Church, is
yes,
that it?
That's it, yeah.
It sort of went in a diagonal direction across the backyards and yards of the houses and intersected right there. And we assume that she got on to the edge of the highway and started walking. Now, K-9s are great at tracking through vegetation and dirt, but not the greatest thing on pavement. Especially, you got to think it rained a lot that night.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
A lot of cars travel up and down 18. And so they don't do as well. We knew that she went to that intersection, and then we lost her scent.
Mm.
And so we couldn't determine from there. The K-9 officers kept what they call casting the dog, taking the dog and making wider circles.
Yeah.
But it just couldn't pick anything else back up. So by, I'm going to say 8 o'clock probably, I had 75 to 100 people on the ground actually searching fields, neighborhoods. We were going door to door. The officers were going door to door. We knocked on every door in that neighborhood. We did everything that I could think of in my mind to do. Search for that child. We did. I had a 3-year-old myself at the time.
Ooh.
And so, it touched home for me.
Yeah.
But even though the parents were displaying everything that you want to see, you still have to investigate. You still can't just take their word for it. You have to go in behind them and investigate.
Of course, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that I personally did that morning was I went over and talked to Harold, and I said, we need to search your vehicles. And he immediately just handed me his keys and said, have at it. And so I went out in the yard myself. I raised the hood on each car and I put my hands onto the manifold and the engine. Those cars were ice cold. They had not been cranked. And that, that tells me, everything that they've told me up to this point, that sort of reiterated, they hadn't been out in their cars. And so, that made me feel a little bit better about their story. But they have been investigated so much. And I really do feel for Asha's parents. I think, I'm sure there's a lot of people speculate, but I've never seen a reason to say that they did anything wrong. And I've seen other children in my career. A lot of people want to know, why did Asha leave? And sometimes children make mistakes just like we do as adults. They make wrong decisions. And I think Asha made a wrong decision that morning to leave out. And I've asked myself that question a million times, and I've never come to a good answer for it.
So y'all went door to door in that neighborhood. Did you find anybody, or did you talk to anybody that was questionable at the time that you wanted to investigate more? Or did everybody seem on the up and up?
That morning, initially, we were doing short interviews. Hey, have you seen anything? Do you mind if we go look in your outbuildings? Short interviews. It's not anything that would be that you would really consider investigative. I mean, it was just knock on the door, see if anybody's at home. We made notes about every house that we went to, if we got someone to the door, things like that. After about 8 o'clock in the morning, we passed everything from the patrol division over to our CID, or Criminal Investigative Division. And so they would have taken up those detailed interviews with people. We didn't find this. As far as patrol, everybody that we had come to the door, they agreed with everything that we asked them. Oh, sure, go look in my buildings. Sure, look under my house.
Yeah.
So the neighbors were very cooperative that morning. But we were in the immediate neighborhood. That's a very small neighborhood, probably 25 houses in all, right?
Yes,
little section.
Yeah.
Several little duplexes right through there. Yeah.
Several little duplexes, little single-story dwellings.
Yeah.
And everybody that we encountered was just, anything they could do to help us.
That's good.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had got a tip from somebody, well, not really a tip, but somebody had sent us a message one time saying they thought somebody who lived across the street was kind of a sketchy guy and had done some stuff. But I don't know.
From my memory, I do remember there's a little trailer park across 18 there.
Yeah.
And I remember that there was some speculation that morning of like a sex offender or something that lived in that trailer park. And I do remember I sent 3 officers, and they tore his house apart. There was nothing that we could find in his house. He's not your normal citizen. He's a sex offender. We got a little more rights.
Right.
Yeah.
He let us in. We had, if he was on probation or parole, we had their parole officer up there, and we went through his residence with a fine-tooth comb and didn't find anything that morning.
And he let y'all, he didn't have any problem or anything.
He didn't have any problem.
Very cooperative.
Yeah, cooperative.
Okay. Were there any other sex offenders around that area at the time? How far did you guys fan out as far as looking for sex offenders? Do you remember?
The initial search would probably have been within about a 2-mile radius that morning. We were more concentrated on looking, down the sides of the roads, going down each road. Later that day, we expanded into the fields in that area, and we did grid searches, walking grid searches. We had 100+ people by the end of the day, and we would take them out and, literally arm's length apart, and did grid searches and walked the fields looking for anything, clothing, book bags, whatever we could find, trash on the side of the road, anything that we could come across, checking abandoned wells, things like that.
I know Dale was on his way to work that morning. It was about 6:30, quarter till 7.
Yeah, because we had to start work at 7, so you had to be somewhere in there.
And he was up there, I guess, at where the road turns into 4-lane.
It was right down near Turner's.
Right there at Zion Church Road.
Well, actually, at where Turner's was.
They had a roadblock there.
Yeah, right about. Yeah, it turns up on about Turner's. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the roadblock right there, stopping people, asking if they'd seen anything.
Yeah, and I rolled up, and I'm like, why in the heck are they having their license checked this morning? And when I rolled up, he said, I don't need the license. We're looking for a little girl. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like shining a light around in my car. And I'm like, check what you need, but it's kind of blew my mind because you just don't expect that.
Yeah. Like I said, we were, everything that we knew to do that morning, we were trying to do it.
Sounds very thorough to me. Yeah.
Yeah. We wanted to be as thorough as we could.
At what point did you guys reach out to the media, get involved, like the newspaper or anything like that?
They were on the ground probably by 9 o'clock. We had the search crews there by 8, and I remember there was a couple of those, like the satellite trucks, I call them.
Yeah.
The antennas up in there. They were there broadcasting. We made them stand off from the house, away from the house and things like that. But they were there fairly early, and we had we had it broadcast that we were looking for Asha, and that actually came back to our advantage later in the day, with the local news media. You have to think this was still, cell phones were there, but they wasn't a popular item. Not everybody had a cell phone in 2000.
Right.
Nowadays we all have one in our pocket.
Yeah, that's right. So what was some of the first tips that came in you guys had gotten?
Well, I mean, we would have, probably some of the first things would roll in, I'm always suspicious of so-and-so, and we would go investigate those things. But about lunchtime that day, or a little after lunch, I think it's probably closer to around 2 o'clock maybe, I was in the sheriff's office. I had went back to the sheriff's office doing reports or checking, administrative type things that I had to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And they called me from the control room and said, there's a gentleman out here wanting to give you information on Asha Degree. And so I walked around the control room, and there was a gentleman there that worked for Sundrop. If you've had anything to do with the case, you've heard about the Sundrop.
Oh, right? Yeah, we've talked about Sundrop guy, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was him, and he said that he was on his way to work that morning, and a lot of people assumed that he was driving a huge Sundrop truck,
including me.
He was not. He was in his personal vehicle, and so he was on his way to Sundrop early in the morning, and he sees Asha walking down the side of the road. He said in his mind, he's sort of in disbelief, what's that small child doing on the road this time of morning? And so he went down to the pantry right there at Zion Church Road, and it was a pantry at that time. I don't know what it is now, some kind of little convenience store.
Yeah.
And turned around and proceeded back up 18 at a slower pace. And he said he came up and, seen the little girl still walking sort of south on 18. And rolled his window down and then said, hey, do you need help? And when he did, she began to move down off the road. She didn't really run, he said, but she wasn't letting grass grow under her feet either.
Keeping distance.
She was just sort of moving down off the road, moving away from him. And he was afraid, he's sitting in 18, he's in his own personal car. It's not like he's in a police car or anything else. And he's talking to a small child, and he said, I was afraid, A, somebody might come up and hit me in the rear end, or B, they might think that I'm trying to pick this little girl up.
Right.
So he was a little nervous, a little apprehensive. So when she moved down off the road, he drove up to, like, Mole's Church, there's one road above that, one road before you get to Mole's. Anyway, he drove up that way and turned around. And he said when he came back down the road, she had disappeared. He didn't know where she went. He knew the direction that she had went off the road, but he didn't see her. And he said he pulled his car over on the side of the road and sort of got out and looked, but he didn't see her. And so his assumption was she must have known people that lived in those houses or been from some of those houses. And so he got back in his car and went on to work. And I asked him, I said, well, why didn't you call us in? And he said, well, I didn't have a way to call it in. He said, I didn't have a cell phone. He said, and I was already late for work. He said, by, turning around and taking his time up, it sort of made himself late for work. And he said that, he just assumed, we always want to think that nothing bad is happening. And so he said, well, she was heading towards those houses. She probably lived there. Or she was probably going there to meet the bus with somebody. And he said, that's what I wanted to believe in my mind, and that's what I did believe. And so he said, I went on to work. And he said he didn't find out until later in the day that we had a missing child and that it was more than likely Asha that he seen.
Man.
Wow.
And so he came up there to, give a statement. And he was a very nice guy, very truthful. And that's how Asha was actually spotted. And we have to think about this. Pre-cell phone days, nowadays, I'm watching this child walk down the road and you need to send somebody to me.
Right.
That didn't happen. Couldn't happen back then. Not for him.
I'm glad you said that, because the whole time we did, a couple shows on this, and the only thing we've ever heard was the Sundrop driver. So we're racking our brains trying to figure out where this guy's turning this truck around. And then you say this, and it makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
And it's a damn shame that, I don't know, that it could have ended right there.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, he was just like every one of us. He's just the average Joe,
Right.
And he did the right thing.
Yeah.
What if he had got out of the truck and tried to chase that little girl down, and if somebody seen him, they might be the wrong person, pull up, just shoot him for that now.
Right.
That's true.
He was trying to do the right thing.
It's pretty gutsy of him just to come and talk to you. Because hell, like you said, he could always been looked at sideways, just because he was there.
Well, I know that he was polygraphed. I know he passed a couple polygraphs. So, he was heavily investigated because of what he did.
Right.
Yeah.
He was in the right. He was a good guy. He was a good citizen.
Yeah, we'd reached out to him, and he'd messaged us back or emailed us back or something and said he doesn't know anything more, and he's told everything that he knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
wasn't interested.
He wasn't interested in talking to us at all.
Well,
and I get that.
You have to think, a lot of these people in the Asha Degree, there's probably been a lot of speculation over the years. Well, what if he did,
Right.
I don't believe that. If I believed he was guilty of something, I'd tell you. But he's not.
Mm-hmm.
I believe truly in my heart he was just a good citizen doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking, but we were just like, maybe he wanted to put on the record to tell his side, not just what he told you guys, but I totally understand if you don't want to dig it back up, especially if you're done with it.
I've listened to y'all's podcast for almost a year. It took me a year before I decided to call in.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yep. So, you got to think, it's
so close to home.
It's something that, it's a case that haunts me.
Oh, I'm sure. Mark, what about the items found in the little building behind Turner's upholstery? The pencil.
Wait a minute. You're jumping a couple of days. We got to get we got to get the Roy story in here.
Okay.
They supposedly saw him next, right? Or saw her next.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Roy Blanton and his son.
Yeah, I had to back him up a little bit from finding those items, because we still, in the same morning, supposedly later, Roy Blanton Jr. saw her, right?
I have never, that would have been the investigative part of it. I actually worked with Roy, and,
Okay, so it was the same Roy that used to be a sheriff's department deputy.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor, and like I said, I've never confirmed it. I've never went and asked an investigator, was Roy actually involved with the case? But just from my personal relationship with Roy Blanton was a very good man.
Yeah.
And it's my belief if Roy would have seen that child, he would have pulled over and probably, Roy could talk to people. Roy would have talked her into the truck, and he probably would have took her and fed her breakfast or something, and then took her home and helped her parents spank her, I know.
Yeah. Roy
was just a great guy, and I loved him to death. So, but no, I never confirmed that.
Okay.
I've never talked to an investigator directly and asked that question, so I don't really know if Roy did see her or not.
Okay.
Well, we just heard several different places that Roy and his son Roy Jr. had spotted her on the road that morning.
While they were in a semi-truck.
Yeah.
Or something, right?
Yeah,
Well,
they were in a
Roy
truck.
Or some kind of
retired. Roy left the sheriff's office in about 1996, and this occurred, in 2000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'd been gone for about 4 years, and I know he drove a truck some after he left. So it's very possible that Roy did see something or knew something. Roy had a lot of contacts in neighborhoods, and it may have been Roy just give information. It may have been that Roy relayed information that somebody else seen.
Okay.
And, things get twisted around when you're not sitting there reading the actual reports that's wrote. I don't have my reports to refer to for this, so I'm doing everything by my memory.
Yeah.
When you're an officer, and I used to preach to all my officers, it's great what you seen and it's great what you did, but if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. You have to write it down, and you have to write it correctly. And so
Good advice.
that's what you really go by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if Roy would have said he saw her, then you would pretty much take his word for it. If he was that good a guy, you believe?
He was that. Yeah, he was a very upstanding citizen, a great officer.
Okay.
Roy might have weighed 400 pounds, but Roy would give you the shirt off his back and do anything in the world for you.
Yeah. We remember when Donnie and I used to work at the mall back in the 80s, and
Yeah, he worked at Putt Putt.
yes, so we would let you go down to Putt Putt and hang out there in the mall cinema, and Roy was always around, and he was always really good to all us kids, and which he didn't have to be, because you know how you are when you're kids. But he would always come, and if he had a good piece of advice to give you, he would give it to you. So I was always often wondered if it was the same fella, because he was really good to me.
Yeah. Like I said, if Roy would have had anything to do with it, and Roy might have just volunteered to get information because Roy had so many contacts in the community.
Very true.
And
Okay, well, I was just trying to clear that up, because while we were on the same timeline anyway.
Yeah.
So now you can go ahead.
Okay. So what pretty much happens after that, the next day after Asha's gone? What happens the day 2 in this saga?
Day 2, we spent we spent at least a week just in that general area. I mean, literally, we went, I know, at least probably 3 miles in each direction up 18, every field that connected up through there, and walked them hand to hand, doing, like I said, grid searches. People would call in and say, well, there's an abandoned well, there's an abandoned house, anything that people called in about. And, you have to understand, there was so many people, it had received national attention within 24 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it made national news, and there was so many people calling in. We had people, I know I fielded a phone call, a psychic from like New York or something, oh, you're going to find her here and here and here. We had to investigate all that. We were overwhelmed for the first few days, trying to get those kind of calls, get them out of the way so everybody else could, the investigators or whatever could actually do their jobs and do the real investigations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was very overwhelming for about a week at least. I mean, there was hundreds, if not thousands, of calls coming in.
Were the search dogs used up 18 or down 18 toward Turner's upholstery?
They were.
Did they react to anything around there that you know of?
Well, what you have to think of is, I initially used the search dogs that morning, and they tracked out. But once you put 100 people in a field,
yeah,
and you stir that field up, what a dog does is your skin is constantly shedding microorganisms off little skin cells, and that dog smells you by your skin cells. Well, we put 125, 150 people out there dropping skin cells everywhere.
Yeah, it's just gonna.
You have a dog, and you can have the greatest dog in the world, but if you put it, if you put it in the middle of that kind of situation, what's it going to do?
He's just overwhelmed. Yeah,
a dog is still just a tool. It's a limited tool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no. There's nowadays dogs are specialized trained. They have cadaver dogs now. But we didn't have things like that back then. The dogs that we had were specifically trained for track people. And usually bad guys, not really searching for a lost person. That's usually more of a bloodhound type dog. We did bring some bloodhounds in and, tried scent tracking. But like I say, we had disturbed that scene so bad by that time. And it's a toss up. It's a decision that you have to make. Do you wait for a bloodhound 2 days to get here, or do you search for a child that maybe, fell in a well or broke her leg or something and lay it in the woods?
Yeah, you
always go to the,
now.
You take the lesser of the two evils.
You search for the child, yeah.
You search for the child.
So getting back to my question, I was asking about the articles that were found in the building behind Turner Upholstery.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard anything if those were confirmed to be Asha's items, or were they just items that were left in the building by somebody else? Or
well, they speculate that they were Asha's.
Mm-hmm.
They were things that she more than likely had in her book bag. But, I don't know. I never heard that her mother, Aisha, actually said, yes, that's hers or that's her pencil. I think it was like a pencil and some wrappers from candy like her father had bought the night before or had given them the day before.
Mm-hmm.
It was things like that. So even if the parents did identify it, I mean, it's still generalized stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that the Turner people would have went out there and set it out there to get attention. I don't believe that. They're good people.
Yeah.
But it may be a coincidence. And it may not. Asha may, that was the direction that the Sundrop driver seen her walking, was towards those houses. So, Asha may have been frightened by him and thought, well, I'll go up to this building here and I'll sit here for a few minutes. He'll leave. And while she's sitting there, she ate a couple pieces of candy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, we love to sit here and think about this and Monday night quarterback it, I call it. But, in reality, how do you pinpoint, if you came to me today and said, is this the candy wrappers that your child had? It might be the same kind of candy that my child likes.
Yeah.
But how do you pinpoint it to that?
Right.
I don't know. Me and Dale, I brought up the theory to Dale that, this being Turner's Upholstery and some of those buildings were used to store furniture. Some of that stuff could have been items that fell out of sofas and chairs and things. How stuff will fall down between your cushions and
very well. And it could be the same, if it's the same type of candy, who would know?
Yeah.
But like I said, Asha was heading towards those buildings that morning. That was the direction the Sundrop driver seen her.
Yeah, what got us is it being so far off the road, that building, from 18, that's a pretty good hike up that hill to that driveway behind that building.
What, probably 200 or 300 yards?
Yeah, at least. We walked it during that video. It's a hike.
But hey, she was a young child. That's not as hard for them as it would be for me or you.
But like you said, if she was going towards the houses that's right up above that, she could have circled around behind and not went up that driveway, went back through the field. But that's still a pretty good long ways. But it's possible for sure.
Yeah, but we're still thinking at our age, not at a 9-year-old.
Yeah. Right. Very true.
What's hard for us is not hard for them.
So, Mark, at some point, she had to come back to Highway 18, and that's where she
the other.
That's the end of the road.
Yeah. So, she got gone somewhere off of 18 right there then.
Yeah. I mean, we want to sit around and talk about what happened and what we think happened. And in my honest opinion, I've always believed that Asha was in the right place at the wrong time. I've always believed that there was some predator driving along, and Asha was a convenient target. And, you know, if she was right on the edge of the road and they were quick enough to jump out of the car and grab her, how long would it take them to throw her in the trunk?
Yeah.
And drive off?
Yeah, I just thought, you know, maybe, you know, the Sundrop driver, you know, her running from him.
Well, like I said,
she'd run from somebody else.
Exactly run from him. It was a quick walk from the way he described it to me.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, what if a person came along that looked a little more familiar, a little more friendly? They said the right things.
Very true.
Or if it was two people in the car, one pull up, one jump out and take off.
The Sundrop driver was probably, you know, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, your tone of voice carries a lot of weight with a child. You know, if a person, what if it was a female that come along?
Yeah.
You know, a child that age is more than likely to walk to a female than they are a male.
Very true.
You know, I mean, if it would have been ladies said, hey, little girl, can I help you? She would be much more apt to walk to that window and say, no, I'm just going to a friend's house. But by that time, she's too close.
Right.
You know, I mean, we always sit here in our minds and want to think that every pervert under the sun is a male. But it's not always the case. And sometimes they travel in pairs.
Very true.
You know, I mean, you have to sit and think about these things. You know, and then there's the speculation of I don't know how the sheriff's office came up with the description for the green car. And it was described as a 1970s, I think, Thunderbird. Is that correct?
Yeah, or a Lincoln, one of the other.
Yeah.
Well, a real long
Lincoln
one.
or Thunderbird.
Yeah.
And what I want to say about that is, and from my experiences in law enforcement, people don't get cars right. They get colors right, usually. So what if it was a 1970s Chevrolet Impala? What if it was a Chevrolet Caprice? Who knows? The person that's seen it might not know cars, but they probably know colors. So when people are thinking about this, don't limit the way you're thinking to a Thunderbird. Don't limit it to a Lincoln. Limit it to 70s model cars green. You know, people, you know, the cars in those days were different.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they were big boats.
They were.
And so when people are out there in podcast world and they were thinking, well, I seen somebody or somebody lived in my neighborhood that was a child molester or that I would be suspicious of, or they drove up and down 18 every day, but they didn't have a Lincoln or they didn't have a Thunderbird, but they drove a Chevrolet Impala. Well, that's close enough. You know,
right.
Call in and say, hey, this is the person that you should look at. I mean, that's not going to hurt. That's what I want to put out there. It might be the little details that we're thinking that law enforcement is thinking. You know, they're giving out a green Thunderbird or a Lincoln. If it was a green car that looked like a boat and you're suspicious of them, call in. Call the sheriff's office. That's their job. They'll be more than happy to talk to you. You know, and it's your kind of show that could trigger that in someone's head.
Yeah. That's why we keep doing this, Mark, to try to keep this out there, and maybe it will trigger something in somebody's head, because Dale and I get messages and emails all the time. We got one this week from a lady that we're going to try to talk to that knew Asha and some other things that she'd revealed to us. But you know, we get stuff all the time. It's just, who do we want to interview and what do we want to do?
Yeah.
You know,
and then who will talk to us
and who won't,
besides just, you know, in a message. Yeah. And I understand that.
The other thing is, you know, if people would think, you know, it's not limited to Shelby. I mean, what if somebody from Gaffney drove to Morganton every day?
Yeah.
What if somebody from Morganton drove to Gaffney every day? I mean, you would travel Highway 18.
Yeah, it's a long road,
And
man.
that's the people that we need to target. Don't think about just people, and y'all's podcast is not limited to Shelby. It's just limited to the world.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We're
And
worldwide.
that's what I think we need to think about. I don't, and it's just always been a belief, a feeling. I don't know what it is. But when I say Asha was in the right place at the wrong time, if it was a person traveling through, I'd like to think they were within 50-mile radius, But 50 miles, that's a lot of people to think about.
So,
That's hundreds of thousands of people.
So talking about traveling to Morganton was where they found the book bag up 18 in Burke County.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so speaking of the book bag.
Yeah, let's talk about the book bag a little bit, yeah.
The book bag itself, I do not know what's in the book bag. What's in the book bag is a secret the sheriff's office held, and it might be a good reason that they're holding it. And I realize y'all probably want, to know what's in that book bag. A lot of people want to know what's in that book bag. But an investigation has to have its secrets. They have to have things that nobody else knows.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it could narrow down to one little item. I know they've released some, they've told that some of the items in the book bag, but they've not told everything.
Yeah.
And so there may be that one little thing, that one oddball thing that they're holding to themselves so that when they interview the right person, they know that they interviewed the right person.
Now,
But then again, the person that took Asha might have drove up 18 that morning and thought, I'll put her book bag in these trash bags and I'll toss it out the window, and he may have never even opened it. Or she.
yeah.
True.
They might have snatched it open, looked inside, said there's no money in here, it's nothing I need, and throwed it out the window. The other thing was a lot of people think the book bag was buried, and from my understanding, talking to investigators that day, it was not really buried. It was like just in deep grass. Like if you throw something out and it lays there for a few months and the grass in the summertime grows over it. And,
Kudzu.
it was several months later that it was found.
Right.
And I don't think it was actually buried per se. Maybe the state had thrown grass over it when they were mowing it and
It may
whatever.
Have been buried out of sight, but not under dirt.
Yeah, out of sight, but not actually under the ground.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of people had said, "Oh, it was buried."
Right.
No, it's not.
Well, that's what happens when you say, everything gets taken out of context and you don't really know, and then the story gets
a lot
told
of people
several times.
speculate.
Right.
So.
That makes
But I
more
pretty
sense.
much know that. I remember talking to the investigators that found it. They wouldn't tell me, and I'm not privileged to that information. They shouldn't tell me.
Right.
Mhm.
Just because I'm an officer and work with them, and I have the utmost confidence in Cleveland County Sheriff's Office to solve this. They have good investigators. They have good people, but they need the right tips.
Mm-hmm.
They need the right people to come forward now. It's been almost 24 years. So, and what y'all are doing could get them that right tip.
Yeah.
It's that one little thing. It's that one person sitting here tonight or a night in the future listening to a podcast, and they said, I live here in this neighborhood, and there's a guy that drives a green car, and he used to work in Gaffney every day, and he drove up and down 18 every day. That could be the guy, and he was just,
Yeah.
it could ring that bell.
And if that's that one guy, he probably never committed another crime in his life and never done anything else. They wouldn't have any record of him anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to believe that Asha's alive. I would love to believe that.
Yeah.
But statistics tell us otherwise. And if she's not alive, that discovering where she's buried could tell us who done this. There's a lot of things that we could discover from that. And, I don't know how whatever it takes to solve this crime. It's going to come from a tip. It's going to come from a citizen. It's going to come from a person. Look at Soupy Price, the case that went on for years. It was 30 plus years before they figured out who killed, what was it, Brenda
Sue Brown, yeah.
Brenda Sue Brown. And it came from a deathbed confession. I mean, Asha Degree might take the same thing. But let's get that confession.
Yeah.
If the person out there listening said, my father told me he killed a little girl, it's time to call in. It's time to give him up. Even if he's dead, it's still time to tell.
Yeah.
Because we could find her. We could return her to her parents. It takes one phone call. The right one.
Well, Mark, is there anything else you want to tell us about your thoughts on Asha Degree? Anything that's haunted you? You said this has haunted you for years and it's been on your mind.
Yeah. Well, y'all brought it to the forefront of my mind. It was y'all. It wasn't, I love listening to y'all's podcast and y'all keep bringing it up. And so finally it worked into my soul. I said, if I could do anything.
Yeah.
If I could talk for 5 minutes and spur a thought in someone's mind, it's worth it. Man.
Yeah, it's just,
y'all are doing the work. Y'all are doing a great job. I love listening to you.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, very much.
We really do.
I've got a friend of mine that lives in Brunswick County, and he got to listening to it because of the Bald Head Island murder.
Yeah, Davina Buff Jones. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything about her, but when I listened to it, and I've got a friend of mine that from Shelby and lives in Brunswick County, and I said, you need to listen to this podcast. And boy, he called me back just blowing up. He said, I always heard there's a bunch of crooks with the law enforcement down here in the fire department. He knew that fire chief that y'all get mad about. He knew him personally. He said, he didn't like him either.
Yeah, those her sisters, Tanya and
tough buff
Beverly's
girls.
Tough buff girls. Yeah, they're
firecrackers.
pretty awesome
I love
gals.
listening to those episodes. They're a handful.
Yeah, they're very passionate, no doubt about it. And kudos to them because they're doing the work, try to find out what happened to their sister, no doubt.
Yeah, they ain't letting it go. That's for sure.
Mm-mm.
But y'all are helping. Y'all are stirring it up, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Well,
Mark, man, we certainly appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and get your insight on your thoughts on Asha Degree and clearing up some things because, there were some things you told us that we didn't know about her case.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes, like you
Well,
said.
in closing, I'd like to say, the sheriff's office in Cleveland County, I left there. That's still my boys. I love them to death. They've got good people that work there. You got a great sheriff, Alan Norman. He's doing everything that he can to solve this, I promise you. Because, like I said, it was Alan's shift. Me and him have talked about this case. I know it truly bothers him too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case that he's passionate about. And they will do what's necessary to solve it if we could just give them the right
It was something to go on, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited about this when Donnie come to me and told me, about you and what was going on. I'm like, first question was, so wait, how did this come about? And he told me that you reached out to us, and I was like, wow, I'm honored, So thanks so much for doing that. I know it ain't easy, especially if it's bothered you, like you say, and it's just going over in your mind hundreds of times, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, like I say, there's been several sleepless nights thinking about this case, I can promise you, over the years, and I felt for the Degree family. They've been through it. I couldn't imagine what they've went through.
Mm.
Yeah, I told him I'd like to talk to him, but then again, do you really? I mean, how many times? I don't know. It just seems like you just keep dragging it back up. I don't know, but you don't want to let it go. But then again, you don't want to. I don't know. I'm conflicted there.
Well, I believe in podcasts. I listen to them. There's been a lot of crime solved with podcasts nowadays.
And there's a lot that's covered Asha Degree's case. I mean, there's been a lot of podcasts covered her case.
Yeah. Y'all's is not the only podcast. I listen to Crime Junkie, one of the other podcasts, and they had an episode on it.
Yeah, they did.
They didn't have the information that y'all have.
Well, they can
I think y'all covered it a whole lot more.
Well, Crime Junkie can be number 2 to us then.
Yeah,
exactly.
No doubt about it.
I think y'all've cornered the market on that issue, but I think it needs it.
Yeah, we're gonna stick with it.
Yeah.
I mean, when we can find somebody that'll talk to us and we can dig up something, we'll put an episode in when we can and try to keep it going.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so that's what it needs.
Yeah.
People need to think about it.
Well, Mark, man, we certainly appreciate this a whole bunch.
Yeah, thanks for your time, brother.
I appreciate y'all having me on the show.
All right. You have a good night, man.
Thanks a lot, bro.
All right. I'll see you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Dale. Again, we want to thank Mark Davis for being on the show, agreeing to doing this for us. Man, he's just
how cool is that, man?
Wealth of knowledge, and appreciate his service to Cleveland County law enforcement.
Very much so.
Everything he done.
Sound like he done everything he could and done all the right. I mean, listen.
Yeah.
What else could he have done?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not in law enforcement. I'm just at my microphone. But
from where we're sitting, damn good job, sir.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do? It's just, you covered all your bases.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, Mark. Thanks so much for reaching out and coming on and telling us some stuff we did not know.
Yeah.
And that's just a little more we can add to our file of stuff we know now.
And we're going to keep this theme going with Asha Degree and things that we can do for her. Anytime we get something we can put out, we're going to do it.
That's right.
Keep her story going.
We got to find that.
Because, like Mark said, all it takes is that one little thing for somebody to remember or to know and call something in.
Yeah.
And it'd solve this case.
That's right.
Find some justice. Find that little girl.
And that's what it's all about. Man.
Yep. All right, dude. We're going to get out of here, man.
All right, buddy. Let's roll.
We want everyone to be safe. Please be careful and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the Crack House Chronicles.